Loyalty still matters in our country. Jack Thompson was a 72-year-old farmer who had spent his entire life working his family's 1,000-acre farm. And for half a century, he had supported our troops in a way few others did. When a final eviction notice was posted on his property, it caught the attention of someone influential, and within a day, events unfolded that would change his life forever. Jack had always run his small, family-owned farm the same way his predecessors had. For 3 generations, the farm had served both the local community and the military. Every week for the past 30 years, Jack had kept a special landing zone clear on a field at the south end of his farm, just as his father had done during the Vietnam era. This area was a key spot where military helicopters, flying in from an airbase 2 states away, practiced their landings. Locals knew Jack's place well. When young pilots needed to practice night landings, Jack would be up late setting up the lights, while his wife, Linda, prepared coffee and sandwiches for the crews during those long training sessions. "You can't expect our kids to train on an empty stomach," she'd say. Even during the busy harvest season, Jack made sure the field stayed open, understanding that military readiness couldn't wait for the crops to mature. For 40 years, he'd never troubled the county, but everything shifted when a tech company from Silicon Valley, called Tech Venture, purchased the surrounding land. The new owners weren't interested in military training areas or national security. They saw only valuable real estate for their new tech campus. Unfortunately, Jack's farm was right in the middle of their plans. "We're offering above market value," they told him, but no amount of money could ever replace 5 decades of service to the country. The farm wasn't just a piece of land. It was a critical training facility that had helped countless pilots hone their skills. Many of those pilots had gone on to serve in every conflict since the Gulf War. One day, Jack sat at his kitchen table staring at the eviction notice. 50 years of his family's legacy was on the brink of ending because corporate developers couldn't appreciate the true value of what they were demolishing. His father had cared for these fields during the Cold War, and his grandfather had started the tradition back in World War II. Now, zoning laws and property developers were about to do something that even war had failed to achieve. One by one, Jack watched his neighbors sell out. The family next door, who had once offered a resting spot for helicopter crews at a nearby location, had already marked their land for development. Down the road, the Wilson family had sold off their 200 acres that once served as an emergency landing zone. Every night, Jack and Linda would sit in their kitchen reviewing the offers from developers. "I just don't get it," Jack would say. "We've been helping train pilots for 50 years. How can they just wipe out all that history?" Linda would hold his hand as they remembered all the young service members they had supported, along with all those late-night training sessions. But they both knew that time was running out. One afternoon, with trembling hands, Jack posted a sign on his property. "Notice, military training zone closing, Thompson Farm, serving our troops since 1943. Writing those words made everything feel all too real. Right below, he added a smaller note. "Thank you for 50 years of service to our country." At first, Jack didn't inform the military. He simply continued to maintain the landing zone, as he always had. But people noticed something was off. His usually confident posture seemed diminished as he set up the landing lights, and his voice wavered when he radioed incoming helicopters with coordinates. Soon, a young reporter stopped by for some photos and asked about the farm's history and what it meant for military aviation training. Jack recounted how his grandfather had first offered the land for training during World War II and how, over the decades, they had supported pilots through Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. He didn't expect much from the article, just another tale of progress erasing history. But something about the simple sign and the story behind it struck a chord. The photo spread quickly through military circles, with one post summarizing 50 years of a pilot training ground, gone just like that. As the story gained more attention, people began sharing their own memories of Thompson Farm. The night landing practices, emergency procedure drills, and Linda's coffee and sandwiches during those long sessions. That evening, while Jack was working in the barn, the old landline rang. His daughter had long begged him to get a cell phone, but he always insisted that the old phone was just fine. "Mr. Thompson," a voice said, "please hold for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs." Jack nearly dropped the receiver, thinking it was a prank. But moments later, another voice came through. "Mr. Thompson, I saw your story about the farm. Tell me about it." For the next 20 minutes, Jack talked with the chairman, not about politics, but about service. He shared memories of late nights guiding helicopters, watching young pilots become skilled aviators, and passing down the tradition of maintaining the same landing zone his father had set up. "Finally, we can't afford to lose training grounds like yours," the chairman said. "Give me 24 hours. Jack could barely hold the phone. His hands were shaking so much that he hardly knew what to say. After months of feeling hopeless, the chairman's promise sparked a glimmer of hope. Overjoyed, Jack called out to Linda, "You won't believe what just happened." Linda rushed into the room, and when she heard that the chairman himself was on the line ready to help save the farm, she burst into tears. After all those sleepless nights, and watching Jack exhaust himself maintaining the fields, at last someone truly understood the value of their work. The next morning, as Jack finished his chores, the sound of rotor blades filled the air. An Apache helicopter flew over the tree line, followed by 3 Blackhawks that landed on the training field. Jack noticed the markings immediately. These weren't the usual training crews. This was the Pentagon's own fleet. 2 generals stepped out, each carrying a briefcase. Jack's heart raced. He knew this had to be about the chairman's call. One of the generals addressed him, showing his credentials. "Mr. Thompson, we're here to make sure your farm stays exactly where it belongs, serving the United States military." They spent the next hour at his kitchen table, with Linda serving coffee as they reviewed paperwork. The generals explained that the farm would be designated as a protected military training facility, making it off-limits to developers. The military would lease the landing zone, ensuring a steady income for the Thompsons while preserving the essential training area. "This ensures your farm will keep serving our troops for generations," one of the generals said, pointing to the document. Jack's hands were still shaking as he signed the papers, feeling like he was in a dream after months of fearing the worst. After packing up the documents, one of the generals added, "Remember, some things are worth more than money, and supporting our military is one of them." Later that same day, they visited the offices of Tech Venture. The developers' faces went pale when the military officials arrived. No more discussions about property values. The new paperwork detailed official orders to protect military installations. One executive tried to argue about their development plans, but the general cut him off, citing national security concerns. Suddenly, the developers had to revise not only their plans for Jack's farm, but for all the surrounding land that supported military training. Within hours, other farmers started receiving calls. The neighboring property that had served as a resting area for crews would remain untouched, and the Wilsons could keep their emergency landing zone. One by one, the threatened farms were protected, just as promised. Today, Thompson Farm still stands. Jack continues to maintain the landing zone, although now his grandson, Sam, works alongside him, learning the family tradition. The training schedule is busier than ever, and Linda still makes sure every crew gets hot coffee and fresh sandwiches, just like before. Jack still stays up late for night training sessions, insisting, "You can't expect our boys to learn in daylight." That old closing notice now hangs in his barn as a reminder of the day everything changed. Sometimes people ask Jack about the call from the chairman, but he just smiles and changes the subject. He'd rather show them the new landing lights or let them watch the helicopters as they practice their approaches. What happened at Thompson Farm wasn't just about saving one family's land. It proved that some things like the tradition of service can't be measured in dollars. While developers saw only prime real estate, the military recognized what Jack had known all along, that some legacies are worth protecting. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. And don't forget to check out the video on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you next time.